You're listening to Tehachapi with Key Budge, Corey Costello, and Greg Garrett.
Welcome back to Tehachapi. Greg Garrett, Corey Costello, and I'm Key Budge. We thank you for joining us once again. Today, guys, we are going to talk to Doug Jockinson from TCT, our Tehachapi Community Theater. This is going to be cool because it's been a long time since we've had anything going on at the BK. So I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Probably a lot of things going on behind the scenes, but nothing for the door to open to allow, patrons to come inside. So I'm super excited to talk to Doug also.
I've appropriately memorized my lines for this podcast. So, just to make sure.
Are you represented? Do you have an agent?
I was an extra in a movie in case you want to look me up on IMDb. I'm just going to throw that out there.
God, here we go.
Corey did have me talk to his people in order to book him for this.
Mm-hmm. And they said he's wide open whenever. It doesn't matter, right? Because there's nothing booked.
They said who?
His people was Corey. But,
right. Yeah, exactly.
Well, I'll have to check on behalf of Mr. Costello.
It was my 4-year-old. He just started babbling into the phone when you called. Yeah, exactly how it goes.
Well, as we've got the TCT conversations about to take place, we also want to talk about our recent conversation we had with Kern County Public Works. Remind everyone that the landfill. Corey and I picked up a lot from that
was a lot
episode.
of stuff,
It's like we thought, hey, it's the dump, it's a landfill, we know. But we learned a lot from what Chuck and Denise shared with us. So if you haven't heard that podcast, we really encourage you to take a look, because I went back and shared information with my wife about the paint drop off, which is every day that the dump's open. Yeah. It's not just household hazardous day. So that was for me, I got so much old paint in the garage. It was a mind blower because we always kind of try and stagger it to that.
And they're all
Saturday
full cans because you've never actually started that project.
Right.
But, Key and I were talking this morning about how, this is a two-way street. The intent was to start the podcast so the citizens, the listeners would learn. But it's so ironic that we are learning ourselves about all kinds of things that are happening, good, bad, and indifferent, right? But we're also on that receiving end.
Yeah, and the landfill conversation was good to have because, we talked about that. I mean, it's so technical now. It's not just a dump where you just throw everything away. It all has to be, diverted per the state of California. So that creates all these separate recycling areas, and then what happens to it. And, interesting to hear that our electronics are essentially mined after they're dropped off. They're sent to a place in LA and people start pulling precious metals out of those things. Sounds like an interesting business opportunity.
Crazy. And I think it was, Corey, you used the word, the science. And that it truly is a science of how they manage that landfill and get extra life out of it, and making sure things are diverted or recycled. It was, for me, it was really interesting. Just like our water show that we did several weeks ago, I learned a ton about where our water comes from here in Tehachapi.
There's so much to know, and the science is not free.
So we invite you, if you tuned in specifically just to talk TCT, that's what we're going to talk about. But we also want to kind of push you down the archive of Tehachapi, because there's a lot there that's information that is evergreen. It lasts, and it's worth going down the list of all the titles and taking a look at some of the shows that we've covered, as this is show number 72 that we are producing today.
So TCT is Tehachapi Community Theater. They've been in business for many, many years, and the city of Tehachapi is in partnership. We lease the BK Theater right downtown on Green Street to the TCT group free of charge. And we're so happy to have that relationship, that strong, positive relationship.
And representing TCT today is Doug Jockinson. Doug, welcome to Tehachapi.
Thank you very much.
It's nice to have you here. It's nice to be talking to someone in the community that's getting ready to get something going. I think everyone's waiting for this. So Doug, what can we talk about that's been, let's talk about the past year, because I know it's got to be a challenge for everyone, but we haven't really ever touched on what's happened with our community theater. Do you mind sharing a little bit about what, COVID did to our community theater, or, what that experience has been like?
Yeah, sure. We were halfway through a normal season, which is a show about every other month. We were just finished doing Trip to Bountiful. Prior to that, it was Young Frankenstein, the musical. We were a month away from putting Nonsense, the musical, on stage, and we got this message from the state that said, you have to get out of your theater. We were like, what? So we were basically told we had to shut the building down because we couldn't have the number of people that it takes to run it in there, and we had to get out. So we basically had to shut production down. We contacted MTI Music Theater International and told them we were going to have to shut down. They said, we know, we'll hold on to your show. The rights for the show were about $4,500 just sitting there. And that's before props, costumes, you name it. So we had a lot of money invested in the production. Since then, we have not been able to produce anything because we haven't been able to use our spaces. Again, because of the COVID restrictions, we're not able to put enough people in a space to really do anything. We looked into doing other ways of fundraising. We put on old shows and tried to do that for donations. It was successful, but not enough to catch our bills every month. We produced new stuff and put that on and asked for donations. That didn't work. We sold tickets to new things that we had produced. That didn't work. So we kind of tried everything we could. The reality is we're a small market and people are used to the theater experience. They're used to coming to the BK Theater, which is very nice, opulent, beautiful space, and having that theater experience. And we can't provide that through a screen. We're also chasing free things on YouTube, TikTok videos. I mean, you name it. We're not a big draw as far as on-screen media goes. We've been kind of paying the bills and watching our bank accounts swirl around and around.
Well, Doug, you bring up some important things, I think, when it comes to just the productions that you put on. I mean, I think some folks might think that this is a small community theater, so you all sit around and say, hey, we're going to put on Oklahoma this month, and you're just going to go do it. But no, these actually require licensing, memberships, and you have to pay for the rights to produce these plays and these other productions, don't you?
Right. About 5 years ago, the advent of residuals hit Broadway because the original musicians that played on the original albums were making nothing. And they were literally going to the poorhouse when they retired, even though they had played on 16 incredibly good hits they played in the orchestra. So they came up with residuals. They had a 5-year phase-in period so that everybody who was an original cast member, an original musician, the writers, everybody gets paid when that piece gets the rights sold to it. So the rights went from literally a big musical would have been about $1,500 5 years ago. It's over $6,000 now. What that did was it solved the problem in the industry where people who are incredibly talented and have given their lives to theater now don't have to, survive on Social Security, which they shouldn't have to because they're very creative people and they gave their lives to theater. But it priced out churches, schools, and in a lot of cases, community theaters. It just priced them out of the market to be able to produce big name productions. Fortunately, we're a well-managed theater and we know how to get the butts in seats, as it were. We also produce at a high level. We have that idea that just because it's called community theater doesn't mean it can't be as professional as possible, and that the show starts on the street. So the minute you come in those doors of the BK Theater, you're greeted by volunteers in uniform. The box office is very well managed. Seating is very well managed. The shows are impeccable. So we are able to survive because we can sell tickets.
Yeah, it's an amazing organization. You're full of volunteers. You are a nonprofit. Of course, you have to have donations and membership. We can talk about membership in a minute, maybe towards the end of the show, and let people know how to become members. But can you talk to us about what you've been doing behind the scenes to get ready to open up for the next show, let's say post-COVID? Everybody is, now we're in this mode, post-COVID. What's next? Because we're just so anxious to get out there, to go to the live theater, to go to a movie theater, to go out to eat, all those things. Talk to us about TCT and the BK and what's coming.
We're at the open stage now, and it was the same for Will Viner down the street at the hitching post, because we talk. And we're at the open stage, but the seating arrangements are 15% for us. At what it costs us to produce a show, we can't put 15% of a house in. We would lose money every show. Even at 25%, he's in the same boat. You would lose money because of what it costs per show. There's a per show charge for everything. And for him, it's per showing. So we're both in the same boat. At the 50% mark, it'd be really tight. You may or may not lose money, but it's not worth risking it because we can't lose money at this point. We are literally counting every penny that goes out. If we get beyond that stage, we'll be okay. Right now, we have put back into production, and I'm making phone calls today. The cast and the crew and the tech people are all on board back to Do Nonsense again, which was a month away from opening. We're going to start up rehearsals again. We had a cast member change because for a good reason. One of our cast members is pregnant with her first child. So we have to excuse her. Playing a nun, we can't have a pregnant nun on stage.
It's a whole new storyline.
You know what? You might be able to take this play in a whole nother direction. I'm just gonna throw that out there.
It is it's the ribald broad comedy, so it might work. But we are going back into production with Nonsense as soon as we can get past that 50% or at that 50% of capacity. We have to do the math and figure out whether it makes sense. The nice thing is that we paid for the show literally a year and a half ago. So we're not chasing $4,500 plus props, plus costumes, plus. It was probably about $7,000 to $8,000 total. We're not chasing that. That's already paid for. What we are chasing, though, is the ability to produce the next show, because we don't have any monies in the coffers. We are literally counting every penny, trying to figure out how many months we can survive. We've cut off our phone service. We met with the city, who was very generous. Thank you, Greg. We met with John Rombouts, who's also been very generous. We put out a general plea to the patrons, citizens of Tehachapi, who were extremely generous to us. We love our community, and we love doing theater for them. So they have been very helpful. They're going to keep us alive for another couple months. And hopefully that will get us to the production. That'll get the BK Theater back open. So we're all leaning way forward on trying to get this up and running again, because we've always produced ourselves out of trouble. And in this instance with COVID, we have not been able to do that. So we all look at each other with blank stares. We're all theater people. What else do? We produce live theater. But in the absence of that, what do?
I have faith in you, Doug, and your entire management team and everybody that's associated with TCT. You know, the city of Tehachapi owns the building. We don't charge rent. We also provide water, sewer, and trash free of charge. And then former Mayor John Rombouts, he leases you a facility, which you call the second stage. Is that right? Second stage?
Yeah, it's got two names. It's J Street or Second Stage.
Okay, and that's where you build sets and you sew the uniforms or the skits, all the different things that are happening. So it's truly a community collaboration, and we want to encourage people to figure out how they can get involved and help, even in the smallest way.
See, I never knew that. That's a great backstory to what goes on and how deep are the volunteerism and people here in the community are committed to helping different organizations. But in this case, I mean, that's a big deal.
Right. You know, the BK, Doug, you know this, it's a small theater. It holds about 100 people, but there's no backstage. In a theater, you need a lot of room, right? Because you got moving parts, you got actors, you got coming and going. So typically when you see a production run, you'll see a motorhome out back in the parking lot, different things. So they really struggle with the space that they need to put it up, but they do a great job pulling that off. So in essence, they have to have 2 spots across town. That's not very efficient, but that's just the way it goes, right? The BK is the BK.
That's one of the things that makes it true community theater. The community gets involved, right? So. You know, so that's
our second space has been a space that we started out building, just simply building sets there, and it was a place to store props and stuff. What it has since become is people who have period furniture, who don't know what to do with it. It was grandmas and stuff. They give it to us. We refurbish it, and it goes live again on stage. And because the second space is so large, we have an incredible collection. We've been the receivers of several people's estates worth of furniture, of clothing. You wouldn't believe how many costumes we have. So all of that saves us from having to either rent, build, you name it, it all goes into production costs. So it saves us from having those production costs. So the community themselves are making it easier and easier for us to produce theater that they can come then see and enjoy. We have people come back 2 and 3 times to shows. They get addicted to it and they come back again and again.
Yeah, it's such an important piece of the downtown experience and the ability to be have that walkable downtown, to have that entertainment piece alongside the dining piece. And so I'm really excited to have you all back, because getting that live theater experience is just an important part of experiencing downtown Tehachapi to its fullest.
Yeah, we're happy to be back, or happy to be coming back. I think half of us are going to weep when the sign finally goes on. If we can turn that marquee back on, and it means we're opening the doors. You don't know how much people have missed it in TCT. It's what we do, and we're an all volunteer organization. So a lot of us have been sitting around trying to find other things to do, but theater is really what we do. It's what our passion is. So without it, life has not been the same.
You know, it's almost like we need to have a grand reopening.
Hey,
a rebirth.
I think that'd be great.
You know, a rebirth of whether it's and you do it before you go in for that that first on-stage rehearsal or something like that, to kind of build a little hype leading into that first performance and the future shows. But I think we need to do some rebirth of our lives as we come out of this. And this, to me, I can see the red carpet, the ribbon cutting, a celebration of entertainment.
That's exactly right. Key, several weeks ago, I was talking to some staff members talking about a grand reopening of downtown. And this would fit perfectly in that, wouldn't it?
Oh, amen. All right.
Our production committee was talking about the same thing, too. That's the second thing they're planning. This summer, we're going to be providing entertainment at the farmers market, and they have chosen to do it every first and third Thursday, because I think it's a total of 18 hours worth of things that we have to produce and coordinate to get the talent there. We're trying to work with vendors to come and serve some food, to draw people away and feed them. And all of those would be sources of income streams for TCT, so we can continue to pay our bills. Right now, the production committee is working on that. That's what their focus is at this point. Beyond that, TCT is also looking beyond Nonsense and the next show as to what do we do for the rest of the calendar year, because that's our season, and we need to fill in the blanks on that. So we'll be putting out little feelers and stuff to people, asking them what do they want to see, because that's always the first question that we ask before we produce anything. What does Tehachapi want to see? Because it doesn't do any good to produce a show that nobody wants to come to. So it's our first question that we have to answer. What does the community want to see?
I think at this point, comedies work.
Yeah.
Right. We all need to laugh. We need to laugh.
Comedies and musicals.
So if people want to send you input on that, are you sending that to info@tctonstage.com, or where do you want that to go? Actually,
one of the things that we did several things that really needed to be done for the last 50 years. When we first got shut down, we went and we got a professional website designer. And I donated money. Everybody in the troop kind of donated money to pay her. We set up a new website, which is so much more functional and so much more full of the things that we need to let people know. You can wander around it now. It's a wonderful site.
What's that address?
It's tctonstage.com.
Okay.
And that's where you can find everything TCT is on there. You can buy tickets for shows online. So you can pretty much do everything you can do. We used to call it on a real website, which we now have. But on there, it has all the information about what we're doing this summer, what we're doing in the future. If we know, as soon as we know, it's on there. If we don't know, then it's not there. People always ask us questions and say, well, don't you know yet? Well, it's hard in COVID because we don't have a date. An example would be, in order to buy the rights, we have to tell the company that holds the rights to the show what our show dates are. Well, sometimes we can't prognosticate into the future as to when we can do those things. And if you buy the rights at the wrong dates, some of them will let you switch your dates. Others will not. They'll just hold you to it. And so you're paying for nothing. And right now we can't. We have to be very fiscally sound.
Well, how many volunteers does it take to effectively run the theater, behind those that are actors, and then you've got the behind the stage, the ticket takers, your whole group? Is there a number, or?
Yeah, it's about 15 people per show. And then you have to go per show. If you have 8 shows in any one run, some of those volunteers are in the booth and they will come back for every show, because obviously they're the ones pushing the buttons at the right time. Others are front of house staff. We have concession staff. We have box office and ticket takers staff. So it varies, but it's a lot of people. In any one production, there'll be a couple hundred people involved for every production. Even small cast productions have a couple hundred people.
And I bet you're trying to recruit some new volunteers, maybe people that are new to the area. We've had a lot of people move in here over the past year. Are you looking to add to the volunteer staff?
Yeah, we are. On May, I was just checking my notes here. On May 15th, we are having an all-come meeting, as they call it. And I wish I had the time. I don't. I believe it's on the website. But we've done this. We did this last year right before we closed down. We had the same exact meeting. And we got all kinds of people that came out that said, I love to work with wood. I'd like to build sets. I sew. I'd like to do costumes. I'd be really interested in learning how to run the sound, the lights. We train all of that. There isn't anything that somebody can't walk in and say they want to do that we can't teach them how to do. So we are very volunteer centric because that's how we run. We have to have volunteers. We don't have any paid staff at all.
So if you want to learn more about how you can become part of TCT, volunteering behind the scenes or even in front of the camera, if you will, you can, on May 15, you'll have an all hands on deck type thing. So people can come, they can learn, they can listen. Where's that going to be? At the BK or somewhere?
It's going to be actually at the BK Theater, or probably on the plaza next door, depending on the number that attend, because beyond a certain number, we can't be in the building. So we have to go outside. It's nice to have the plaza right there, though. And the weather's been great. Weather's been cooperating. So it will be on May 15th. I believe it's in the afternoon. But again, I crossed that out on my little agenda items. So I can't read the time.
You'll put that on your website?
Yeah, it's on the website.
Okay, good. All right.
It's actually, we have two Facebook pages too. A Facebook page for Tehachapi Community Theater and a Facebook page for the BK Theater, because the two are really two kind of separate companies, as it were. TCT does do the majority of their productions in the BK Theater, and we support the BK Theater. We run the BK Theater, but we are also a separate company that does lots of other things as TCT. So we had, like last year, we had a big gala. That was a wonderful event. That was great. And so it's two separate businesses kind of married into one.
You know, this is such a great addition in terms of, when I grew up here, I mean, the BK Theater was gone. The original movie house that was BK Theater was gone. And it was a moose lodge, I believe, with a weird facade on the front, and things got festive one night and it burned down. So, I mean, that's a short story. And then the city came along, and Greg was that one of your first?
It was my absolute first project. I was hired and given a desk, and they said, go rebuild the BK Theater. And I said, okay, here we go.
See how modest he is? He didn't even mention oh yeah, I was involved. I had to pull it out of him. This was your first deal.
It was a fun time. It was a fun time.
I mean, I remember I see some of the pictures we have in our old files of the gutted building and kind of what it was, and then to be in there now and what it is, and the facade and the replica sign, and then you see the old pictures of the original movie house, and you're like, wow, that was the exact replica. That is so awesome. So really cool to have that, just a theater addition as a building, and then obviously also as a theater group downtown.
It's been used for many things. I remember when I was a kid, I saw Star Wars at the BK Theater, actually on the big screen. In 1976 or something, I saw Star Wars on the big screen. And then, like Corey said, Moose Lodge, this and that. And then a generous family out of Tehachapi donated the building to the city. And it sat there for quite a while. And we started looking for grants and finding some funds and a partner, which is TCT. And we started that project, and voila, it really turned out nice. I mean, it's a marriage made in heaven, quite frankly, with the city and TCT and the community behind it.
So happy to have a home. You don't know. We were so vagabond. We were doing things in people's barns, literally in people's barns, or in the cafeteria of the middle school. I mean, we were holding theater wherever we could hold theater. So to have a home has been an incredibly nice thing, someplace to go to.
It's one of those spots that if you're ever downtown, you see people staging their little photo, if they're, especially the tourists, they come through or family come to visit, and, they pose out in front of this just iconic image of this building. They wanted to share that with everyone. So it is really cool part of our history. And I'm glad that we're able to continue to share it, and that, and I didn't know you were involved in the rebirth of the building. So that's pretty cool.
That was my first job / headache.
Yeah.
We're
not quite sure how he survived that, because during the building, the state law changed, and we couldn't share a wall with the restaurant because they have open flame in the restaurant. So we literally had to cut 3 feet off of one side of the building and then build 2 buildings next to each other with the alleyway in between. TCT wasn't involved in that, but we were all like, boy, I hope Greg survives this.
Yeah. Well, it was actually more than that. They had encroached, the restaurant had encroached onto our property. So we had to move the wall onto their property, build it to, of course, a firewall standard, and then rebuild their bathrooms and, projects, just remodels. Oh my goodness.
That's what we like to call a change order, and a big one.
And Bowie Construction. Darren Bowie, he actually has relocated or is relocating his business from the Antelope Valley to Tehachapi, building a beautiful facility on Bailey Court out here on the east side of town. he was the contractor that we hired to rebuild the BK.
Yeah, they were
So
great.
we've kept it local, and it's just been, plus, really positives.
We'll have to invite him to the ribbon cutting.
And David Reed and,
You know?
and a whole group of people, they design the interior. And if you've never been in the BK, you've got to go just to see how it looks and feels. It's an old fashioned, like big curtains and felt and velvet. And it's just really, and the lighting, it's amazing.
Well, I've been to a couple of productions, but I don't know the backstories.
Yeah.
And the backstories make it even cooler. Now I can visualize when I walk through after, you go to the ticket booth and you come back in and you're walking down to the front and you see the stage and then you look, to the audience area. And it's like now knowing a little bit more of the history is cool.
Yeah.
Right. We wanted to rebuild the sign out front that says BK, the neon sign. And it's actually over on the junkyard over off of Denison Road. We looked at it, we had quotes, and it was just so expensive to rebuild that sign. So we elected to actually design and build a new sign. Yeah. I think it was probably a good thing because now it's new, it's neon, it works really well compared to trying to bring something back to life. But that's an actual reproduction of the original sign.
And I know it's a little pricey to have on because we were there recently and someone said, whatever you do, don't touch this switch because it runs the lights up front and it's really expensive. So we only do it on really special occasions because it's all neon lights. I mean, these things aren't like, we're not talking LEDs that are super energy efficient, right? So you don't get the shine, you don't get the Broadway shine out of it. So they said, yeah, whatever you do, don't hit this button because this button controls the sign and that's only on special nights.
Right. Speaking of community involvement too, we knew that our electricity bill was just killing us because we'd have like a $1,800 electricity bill in a month, which would just kill the profit on any show. So we went to Home Depot, who's one of our partners, community partners, and said, "Can you donate?" And they were shocked. We asked to just have them. Can you donate so we could put every functional light bulb in the BK into an LED mode? And they thought about it, and corporate hemmed and hawed, and then they finally sent us a letter that said basically yes. So we went over and picked up hundreds of LED bulbs.
Nice.
So every chandelier, every bathroom light, you name it, it's all LED stuff that's going to last 22 years. Cost us pennies where it used to cost us dollars. And then the last big refurbishment, as we say in the theater, we refurbished the carpeting because the wear and tear was starting to show. We painted the interior, we painted the exterior. We also put in LED front lighting, the front wash, but we had to wait for the technology of LED theater lights to catch up so that the photometrics matched what an incandescent light could do and what it looked like and in color. So now it doesn't cost us, it cost us $100 where it used to cost us $1,800.
So Doug, did I just hear you say that you'll be able to illuminate the BK Theater sign out front every night because you're saving so much money inside?
Yeah. That one's still expensive, but we can turn it on and afford that now.
Well, that's kudos to Home Depot for doing that. That's a big deal because I happen to know all businesses, small, medium, and large, every day somebody walks in the front door and is looking for a donation, especially the bigger, the Home Depots, the Walmarts. Everybody thinks, well, I'm the only one out there. I'm the only one asking. Well, the fact of the matter is everybody's asking. And for them to donate such a large part of that upgrade is really nice of them. So thank you to Home
generous
Depot.
to us. We go in looking for screws and wood and stuff, and they're like, okay, 10% off or 50% off or whatever that day's deal is, but we still have our hand out. We're theater people. We need it cheap.
They're like, these guys again, hold on to your wallet. Here they come.
Very true.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have partnerships. I mean, part of the word is getting things out to people. Word of mouth. Our shows sell on word of mouth because we can put everything we can on social media and stuff. And what we get is that it's the 30 and under crowd who don't necessarily attend a lot of theater. They see it, but we don't get that foot traffic that is our patrons. Mm-hmm. But if we have free advertising space in Save Mart and in Albertsons with large posters, that's where people tell us they're seeing our shows.
Nice.
And they come in by the droves, and then they go home and tell 5 people, and pretty soon we're extending weekends. And yeah, it's
well,
nice.
If you illuminated
nice
your sign, you'd bring people in.
There is nothing like, though, if people haven't been to, and I'm talking any live production, any version of live theater, whether it's in Tehachapi or elsewhere. If you've never done that, it's an experience. It's just different than going to the movies, just because it's just a different energy. There's a different vibe to it. I remember when I was one of the first ones that I actually went to as an adult, I was in college and I had to take this theater class, and our adjunct instructor also happened to star in the Old Town Theater in San Diego at this production of Forever Plaid. He was a regular. And so part of our class was we went and watched him. And it was a fairly small theater, a little bit bigger than BK. What an event. I mean, obviously here's a guy that was our teacher, but he really talked the talk and walked the walk. And it was really cool. And that's always kind of made me want to go and check these things out, whether here or elsewhere, because it's a lot of fun. It's a different vibe, and you get a lot of appreciation for the actors because they're memorizing that stuff. There's no retakes, there's no cuts, that kind of stuff. So it's a really cool environment to.
And a lot of times they ad lib, they forget, and they'll just keep going. I mean, the right team can do it really, really well.
Absolutely.
I've been here almost 2 decades. I'm a transplant from down in LA, but every time we sit here and we have a conversation with someone here in the community with something, I'm taking something back that's worth taking back.
Yeah.
I'm learning more and more. I'm enjoying this conversation a lot. Sorry to interrupt you, but I had to throw that in there. So go ahead, Doug.
Well, one of the things that's really interesting about the theater too is, like Greg was saying, we have people who they're known in town. They're known characters in town. They're known people who contribute to the community. And then when we get them on stage, they'll become a part. And sometimes the part doesn't match their character in the community. So we have really nice people who become bad guys on stage. Oh, man, that creates a lot of chatter because people aren't used to seeing them that way, but they're so good at it that they just fulfill that part. And then people come, the theater experiences, you forget that these are your friends and neighbors on stage because you get so into the characters they're playing that you see them as the character. And that kind of throws people back. They're like, oh my God, that was so-and-so. They use their real name, but that's not who they're seeing on stage. That's a successful show right there.
Well, they've tried to recruit me a couple times, and I don't know if it's to play a good guy or a bad guy, or if that I'm in real life, or I don't know, but I still try to dodge that bullet. But TCT, the BK Theater, the Depot, all the things that we have in downtown, the museums, the revitalization, that is the health and the heartbeat of a community. And what TCT does with the combination of the BK Theater, partnership with the city of Tehachapi, it makes our downtown, our city, and our entire community really well-rounded, healthy, and the quality of life is just clicks up and up and up, right? Super proud of what you guys do, Doug.
Well, TCT is known for producing theater because we have that attitude that just because it's community theater, which is sometimes a bad term, you get sock puppets and things like that. We don't produce it at that level. We produce it as the most professional level that we can produce it at, because in most cases, you don't have to throw money at something to produce it at a high level. You have to throw information at it and a method to produce it. And that involves a combination of costumes, lighting, acting, position on stage, good direction. I mean, you name it. If you have all those pieces in place, you can produce stuff that goes way over and above what is commonly called community theater. It becomes very professional looking, and the audience has that emotional experience that they're looking for when they go to a live show. You may have that going to the movie theater, but if you come and you're 5 feet from someone who's crying on stage, it's a whole different experience. Yeah. You're affected for the whole week. I mean, when you walk out, you will think about that moment for a whole week.
And the crazy part too is for a movie, for example, they'll spend millions in CGI effects to change scenes and this and that. And you can be sitting in a live theater and just the way the lighting changes, you understand that you're in a different place, right? The backdrop may not have changed, but it's lit a little differently. So you get this concept and you don't care about all that extra stuff because you're focusing more on the actors and the performers than you are, the people and the sets and the special effects and all that stuff. So that's the kind of the cool part is with very minimal effort, you can change this stuff and really just kind of change the reality of the situation.
Yeah, it changes people. You can change places. We did a show, Sherlock Holmes. It was a Christmas show. And when I first got the script, I didn't pick the show, but they said somebody needs to direct it. So I raised my hand, which is how I get most of my shows. And it had 17 locations in it. And my first thought was, oh my God, how am I going to make 17 locations on an 18 by 30 stage? We did it with projections. We have a laser projector that's a short throw projector. And so we projected slides for backgrounds and just kind of moved the areas by picking sections of the stage to light. And it worked wonderfully. The audience, you could just see it. They were just flowing from scene to scene, didn't bother them. They were in a cemetery, they were in a bank, they were in a bedroom. I mean, it was just great. It worked really well. Very theatrical solutions for things like that.
That was one of my favorite shows, actually, because, things just kind of start to appear and you don't really see it. It's you subconsciously, and then all of a sudden you're in that scene. It was really well done.
Yeah, takes people a minute to get in there. And we do traditional stuff like we did the Sunshine Boys, where one of the comments was that they forgot that the people on stage were actually members of the community. They even forgot their names. All they saw was the characters in the show, and they kept referring to them as the characters in the show. That's like I said, that's that level of theater. When you leave your seat and become a participant in the show, and it's affecting you emotionally, that's what we're going for. That's good theater.
Well, let me ask you this with that. So in your past experience, have you had a memorable moment where something happened and it included the audience?
Oh, yeah. I've had all kinds of moments. One of which was not a TCT moment. As a 17-year-old actor, I got to play the part in a show called The Apple Tree. And it's a 3-act musical. And the first act is called The Diary of Adam and Eve. Well, in that small 1-act, it's a first act, Eve dies. But the audience, it was Alan Alda's first musical, and Barbara Harris played Eve. In there, they set up this whole thing where Adam keeps coming out, ripping out flowers and throwing them in the audience because he hates flowers, and Eve keeps coming and replanting them. It's very humorous the way they go back and forth. Adam's trying to name things. He can't name them. Eve's naming them, the normal things that we all know them as. So finally, one of the last scenes in the act was Adam comes out, and the audience expects him to walk down stage, rip out flowers, and throw them like he's done 10 times in the set. Instead, he's got a big straw hat on. He bends down. You can't see his face because of the shadow of the lights. He bends down, picks a flower, smells it, puts it out in front of him, puts it back in like he's planting it again, then turns his head up, looks at the audience, and with a tear in his eye says, "Eve died today." The audience just falls out. Mm-hmm. So that was one of my favorite moments. The longer I waited, people came back to see the show, and the longer I waited to deliver that line, the more people started to cry before I even spoke, because they knew what I was going to say and they'd seen the show before. And that's, as an actor, that's just so much power. It was wonderful. I loved it.
Well, let's remind people, if they're listening and their juices are flowing, say, I'd like to get involved with TCT. Where do we want to send them? Let's give that information again, if you don't mind, Doug, and then also that important date that's coming up.
Right now, you can go to tctonstage.com if you'd like to propose production to be done. There's a form on the front page that is a production proposal form. You don't have to propose to direct or act or do anything in it. You just have to tell us that you want to see it. If you are you want to volunteer, there's also a volunteer page that tells about the different volunteer spots, and you can also sign up on stage. We're having a physical meet because some of that's kind of cold. You know what I mean? It's all website based and stuff. On May 15th in the afternoon at the BK Theater, we'll be having a meet and greet. And if people would like to come and sign up to volunteer to do a certain position in an upcoming show, we'll be taking names, emails, telephone numbers, you name it. Come on down.
And same thing with your membership, or if people want to donate cash or maybe items, they can go to your website also, tctonstage.com.
Yes, they can. Thanks, Greg.
And very different levels of membership, right? A little bit right here or a lot, just depends on what your
we run everything from $15 for students to $1,000 for what we call Theater Angels. And we've had in the last couple of weeks both of those types of memberships. Last year, because we didn't produce, we didn't feel it was appropriate to collect memberships. So we just gave the entire community memberships in TCT, which was, we didn't produce anything, but they we sent out information about the website and they could come and watch things for free. This year, starting June 1st, we're going to go and collect memberships again because we need that seed money to produce the next shows after Nonsense. But the prices are going to go up June 1st just because production costs have gone up. Before June 1st, I think it's $15 for student, $25 for director, $100 for producer, $365 for executive producer, and angels are $1,000. And the two middle ones are going to go up. The 25 is going to become 35, and the 100 is going to become 125. So those will be membership levels. Members get their names printed in every program, which is kind of nice to see yourself in there as a supporter with all of our partners. It's kind of a nice way to help the theater because we use that money basically to produce shows. It doesn't go anywhere else. We have limited ways that we spend as a nonprofit where everything gets spent on production because that's what we do. We also have we are a super nonprofit in the eyes of California because our charity goes towards other nonprofits. We give away tickets. I think we give away 42 at a set to every other nonprofits in town who can take them and come and watch a show if they want to for free, or they can take them and use them for a fundraiser, which is what most do. They raffle those tickets or they just sell them outright, but we give them away free. It does two things. It gives us bodies, butts, and seats to see the show. Word of mouth gets out. Our shows sell well. And it also helps other nonprofits to have something that they don't have to go out and chase to be able to fundraise.
Well, it takes a village to
make
make our city, our community, our world go round. And what you guys do is very important. So I encourage everyone to become part of it.
Well, Doug, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it. I learned, and again, this is becoming the common theme. I'm learning a lot about the community I've lived in for 2 decades. And just thank you for being the instructor in today's conversation. So we appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me on. Thank you guys too for adding to this too. I loved it.
Have a great day.
Good show. Good show, Keith.
Doug Jockinson, Tehachapi Community Theater. Wow. I know I've said it a couple times in the show, but again, I'm taking away stuff that I had no idea. The backstories on things. Backstories are, if you look at our television channels in the cable realm, it's about backstories to tell a story.
Yeah.
And we learned some backstories today about the BK and
some backstage stories.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And those are the things that, you start to connect. It connects me a little bit more to the BK, to the volunteers at TCT. I don't know what your guys' takeaways were, but that's something for me, as the guy sitting here in the seat that didn't grow up here like you guys.
And he made a great point too when he said, you don't have to throw money at something in order to produce a quality product. And I said, well, that sounds like you're describing our podcast, and he made a great point because it does that concept transitions different things, really anything, whether your business, profession. It goes across the board. And he's true. It takes the right people, the right information, and the right effort. It doesn't necessarily be solved with money. You can solve it many other ways.
That is like our podcast, isn't it, Keith? Because half the stuff I'm looking at, this equipment is yours personally. And so I'm like, okay, that works. But
it's gotten better. When we first started, it was kind of a time bomb.
We had to prove ourselves, and we're slowly proving ourselves. And people are listening, which is really great. Doug, I'm so glad that he made the time. But there's so many other people that are involved with TCT that have been involved from the beginning, or new now. David Reed, others. There's really people that are just their heart and soul. They give. None of them get paid. They're doing it because they love the theater. They love Tehachapi. They want to give back. So kudos and thank you to everyone that helps out at the TCT.
The beauty with theater too is the way you consume theater hasn't changed. The way we consume a lot of other media changes. Whether I know a lot of movie directors get frustrated, right? Because they would direct and make these movies for these giant screens. And then people are like, well, when does it come to digital so I can watch it on my phone? And they get mad that they're watching a film on a 3.5-inch screen. So that's changed. That's changed the way we take digital media in, but the theater is still the theater. You still have to go. You still have to experience that. And not much has really changed in that realm, which makes it really a timeless thing. This has been going on since the beginning of time, right? And so it's good that it's advanced a little bit, but not, it's still really at the roots of what it always has been.
And the audience can sense a good production, mediocre, or a not so great, right? And so, they produce really good shows. Yeah. It's amazing.
Yeah, Chris and I have enjoyed it when we've gone, and we did see Sherlock Holmes also, and that was one I remember. It was, you came away going, I can't believe that was a local community-based theater that put that production together. Mm-hmm. So, hey, if you are interested in the conversation today, we invite you to go to tctonstage.com. That's their new website that they have developed. All of the information about everything that's coming up as the things are unfolding as we get through the COVID protocols and reopening. So they are ready to adapt, open. They're looking for volunteers. Yeah. So we invite you to go tctonstage.com, get all the information. And if you just like to support them, there is ways to support them through the website.
Yeah.
You got anything else that we want to throw
good,
out there?
Keith. Thank you.
Another good conversation. So
there's so many things to do in Tehachapi, right? If you're not involved in Tehachapi, you're living under a rock, right? I mean, there are so many opportunities to give back to this community, and TCT is yet another one.
I do enjoy the shows where you actually learn something, though, Key, because you kind of sit there with this dumbfounded look on your face. I mean, people can sit there and you're like, it's like you're processing what you're hearing.
I visualize everything. So as people are telling the story, I'm visualizing it. So I probably do have that outer body experience that you go, all right, we could throw things
I
at
think
Key.
we should get you on stage.
No.
Yeah.
You could play something.
Well,
there you go, Doug. Whenever you're listening to this, reach out to Key. I'll be his agent, free of charge, and Key will do something on stage, whether it's just a little cameo.
It's
or something.
about time someone else get thrown into a stupid role than me. Here, just do something crazy. Oh, I'll have Corey do it. That's always me, right? Yeah, let's make Key do it for once.
This is the payback for the docent thing I threw at you guys over
Yeah,
at the
the docent
museum.
thing.
Yeah.
Right. That people throwing me on a bull. Yeah, okay. So now it's payback time.
Yeah. All right. All they'd have to have me is at one rehearsal, and they say, Key, thanks.
Yeah.
We'll let you know.
As
next
long as we
year,
can get a picture.
Yeah.
All we need is a picture. Right?
You're gonna play a rock, and you're gonna stand right over there.
I'll be rock number 3.
Yeah, right.
Well, again, tctonstage.com. That's you can get all the information for them. And for us, send us your feedback, your information, show ideas at media@TehachapiCityHall.com. And guys, thanks again for joining me in this conversation and participating and continuing my education on Tehachapi.
There you go.
Happy to help.
So we'll catch you on a future episode of Tehachapod.
Tehachapod is a conversation about Tehachapi designed for the people who live here or who would like to know more about this mountaintop community. If you have a question you would like answered, email media@TehachapiCityHall.com. We will try to answer it on a future episode of Tehachapod.